Now, if you're in the Rivals community, you may have seen some footage like this, where the game looks totally different from what you normally play. It might surprise you to know that even though Rivals has very strong workshop support, this actually uses no workshop mods whatsoever, and does not require your opponent to have any of the mods or do anything. What this is doing is it's replacing the existing vanilla game assets with new ones that will make the game look, sound, or read differently. And today I'm going to show you how you can install these mods. So to start, you're going to want to go to Game Banana. Specifically, you're going to want to go to the Game Banana for Rivals. This is going to be in the description, the link to this. But this has all the mods for Rivals that you can get pretty much. You're almost never going to find a mod from someone else that isn't on here. Most of the time it's going to be either stages, minor resprites, or occasionally an entire character resprite. For now I'm going to install something pretty simple. This fun little mod here, made by some great person. Here's what you do. First of all, you find the download, you download it. This is going to show up in my downloads folder here. And of course we're going to extract it. All of these will come in some extractable form like var or zip. So give us this folder, and in this folder there's these two folders for sprites and sounds. So what do these mean? What do you even do with these? In order to actually install this mod at all, we're going to need the modding tool. I specifically use the V3 version of the modding tool, and that's what this tutorial is going to be for. I found it to be the most stable and consistent version of the tool, and it's the one I understand the most. Even though it's marked as obsolete, it still works, so don't worry about that. There are other modding tools out there, like the standard Game Maker modding tool and a V4 modding tool. I don't know how to use them. You can figure that out yourself if you want to. This is on Game Banana, but I'm also just going to give you the link in the description of the video if you just want to go and download it. We need this. We're just going to download it. It's going to be a .rar. .rars, you don't have a default way to extract them with Windows, so I'm just going to open it with WinRAR and extract it that way. That's also going to give us this sort of folder. So in here, there's going to be a README. This README kind of sucks, I won't lie. That's why I'm making this video. Although the stage modding Discord is a good place to be. If you ever have any troubles modding, this is where you can ask about them. I'm there, so are a bunch of other people who know this tool even better than I do. Aside from that, you're going to have this folder called V3 modding tool, and it's going to have these three files. Now, what you're going to want to do with these is copy them, and then you're going to want to go to your main Rivals of Aether folder. So the directory for this is C program files, x86, Steam, Steam apps, common, Rivals of Aether. There's ways to get to them. Specifically, if you go to Steam, then over Rivals you do properties, install files, and then browse. This will also take you to the folder, wherever it is on your computer. But once you're here, you're just going to want to paste those three files, the Game Maker modding tool, inject, and extract. And extract and inject are the two ones you're going to be mainly concerned with. These are going to be your way of installing mods and also seeing the game assets. To start off, we're going to run extract. You don't actually need to do this to install mods, but it's going to be very helpful. Once you run this, it'll bring up a command prompt window. You can't see it on my screen, but it'll just run through a bunch of different files. And then it's going to say press enter to continue, and then you press enter. And it'll create this folder here called files. The files will contain all of the assets for the game. You've got sounds, which is all the sound effects and music for the game. Sprites, which contains folders for each sprite. For example, this headless running animation, I guess. And then you've got textures, which are sprite sheets. Sprites and textures are a little redundant. Textures contain all the same things that sprites do, but they're in much more modular images, I guess. You have only 97 of them. Rather than each sprite being saved in its own file, they're conglomerated here. As you can see, there's a bunch of different sprites on each of these. Some mods will affect your textures, some will affect your sprites. What you're going to notice here is that these three folders are very similar to the folders from the mod that we downloaded, which has sounds and sprites. And that's for a good reason, because the way that you need to install a mod is you find the directory of the file you want to replace in the files folder, and then you make a copy of that directory in a different folder called mods. For example, this mod that we downloaded has a sound effect in sounds, and then it's sound/sfx small norm explode.wave. We can go here and check the files, and if we find this sfx small norm explode.wave, it's basically the same file here. So we're giving it the same name and the same directory in order to have it replace that file. And the way we're going to do that is by making a different folder. This is going to be called mods. This is where you actually put all your mods. Most of the mods you download will just come like this. They'll have the sounds and sprites folders or the textures folder or whatever folders they use already, and then you can just go to the Rivals folder and then paste it in mods. If you already have folders from previous mods, it will just put them inside the folders when you paste it. If I get a different mod, like say this one, I guess, I can copy the sprites folder, and even though there's already a sprites folder in my mods folder, if I paste it, it'll just put all of those things inside the sprites folder for me. Now that we have this, we're going to want to run the inject function. So the inject function will actually put these assets in your game and make it happen. There is one other thing you need to worry about first. If you inject multiple folders at the same time, it will break. So if you have both sounds and sprites, or sprites and textures, or sounds and textures, or all three, and there's changes in each of them, and you're trying to inject 2 or more of them at the same time, it'll break the game and you'll have to reset your files. So in order to avoid that, what we're going to do is we're going to delete the sounds folder so it's just sprites, and then we're going to run inject. Again, another command prompt window will open, it'll inject all the sprites for you, and it'll say press enter to continue, you press enter, then you go back into the mods folder, you do Control Z to get the folder back in there, and then you run inject again. If I had a textures folder here, I would do the same thing, but I would have 3 of them. So I would delete sounds and sprites, only inject textures. Then I would delete sounds and only inject textures and sprites because textures is already injected. And then I put sounds back and then I run inject again. So now that I've done that, these 2 mods will be installed. And if I launch the game, it should pop up there. Here we are in Rivals. If we want to check what this mod does, we just need to go and check the relevant things that it's supposed to change. So I'm going to practice mode, select Malo, and then just see what his cherry bomb explosion looks and sounds like. Because what this mod does, as you'll remember, is that it re-sprites the cherry bomb explosion and also does a sound effect. And it should also work for the arcade skin. So we're just going to create cherry bomb. Perfect. So you can see there, it does the new animation, it does the sound effect. If we go to an arcade skin, we should see that it affects that as well. Indeed. Perfect. So that's the basic modding tutorial. This is all you really need to know if you want to mod the game on basic level. For the rest of this, I'm going to go into some nitty-gritty stuff about making sure your mods work, what to do if your mods break, and things like that. That should be of additional help. I recommend watching it if you have the time, but if you just want to know the basic details of how to do this, this is all you need. So let's say, for example, I'm not cautious. I have 2 folders at once here, and I don't follow the advice from this video, and I try to inject them both at the same time. Now, what you'll see happen is if I go and try to launch the game, it will come up, and then it will close automatically. It just will fail to load. And it'll stay like this until we reset our mods. The way you get rid of a mod, whether it's because it breaks the game like this or because you just want to uninstall it, all you need to do is you need to find the game on your library, right-click it, go to Properties, Installed Files, and then click Verify Integrity of Game Files. This will reset all of the modified files, and when you relaunch the game, it will be effectively vanilla. From there, you can reinstall your mods however you like, you can fix them, you can test them, do whatever. Just make sure before you reinstall your mods that this progress bar that says validating, that's complete and the game is launchable again. Okay, so here's another thing that will probably come up a lot that's good to know about. Let's say you want to install a mod that replaces a stage texture. Or let's say you want to install the City of Tears skin over Frozen Fortress. This, you'll notice, has not been updated for 3 years, which is going to be a problem, which you'll see because if we download it and then go to our downloads folder, do the whole normal thing, extract it, open it up, there's going to be sprites. These are going to affect the stage selection menu, but there's also going to be textures. And a lot of stage mods will use these texture folders in order to replace them because it's much easier to work with a sprite sheet than with individual sprites. If we try to install this, because it's 3 years old, it's going to replace the wrong thing. The game's file structure has changed since this was made, and so texture number 47 is actually going to be a different texture than what it was when this mod was made. But there is a very easy way to fix this, and you'll probably have to do this a lot if you're trying to install old stage mods, which is to just go to your Rivals folder, go into the files folder that was created when you ran the extract function, and then go to textures, and all you need to do is you need to open them, and you just need to go through until you find the one that your mod is replacing. And there we go. Alright, it's 44, so not 47. You'll see if we did replace 47, it would have replaced a bunch of hurt boxes and like the Abyss laser. It would have just corrupted the game basically. What we actually want to do is, now that we know it's supposed to be 44.png, we can go into the mod that we just downloaded, go to the textures, and then just rename this to 44. Some stage mods and a lot of mods in general will instead modify the sprites folder. This will basically never need to be updated. So if a mod uses sprite folders, you don't really need to worry about this happening. There are also some rare cases where a mod will use a texture file that has actually been completely reformatted, so even besides the name of the file, the actual contents of it have been reorganized. That's a little tougher. You can fix that if you want by going into like an image editor and then rearranging things yourself, but a lot of the time it's not going to be viable to do that. However, that only affects like maybe 1 or 2 mods that I know of. Almost all the time it's just going to be that you have to rename the file. Now we can copy these folders, as we learned, go to the rivals folder, and just paste them in mods. So now we have both the Cherry Bomb mod and also the City of Tears mod. Let's go and install these one at a time. Get rid of these 2 folders, just textures, run inject. Now we have sprites and textures, run inject again. Now we have sounds, sprites, and textures, we run inject again. And if we open up the game now, we should see that all of these mods are in place. Here we are, let's go to practice mode. Let's just test them both at the same time, why not? We can see it's changed on the stage select screen already. And if we go here, the City of Tears mod is affecting the correct stage. And if I use Cherry Bomb real quick, the other mod still works too because we installed them both. Let's say you want to make your own mods. You want to modify something yourself and resprite it, let's say. You can do this pretty much with everything we've learned so far. There's just a few rules you need to know. First of all, you need to find the file that you want to change. Then go to Files, and let's say you want to change the purple screen that shows up when you kill someone. So to find this, normally you'd have to go into the sprites folder, which is where it would be since it's a sprite, and then just scroll through all this, but I already know where it is. It's called FXKO space. Find here it is, and specifically it's these first 2 ones. So first off, what we need to do is copy this folder straight from files, because this is going to make it the easiest, and we're going to want to just put it in mods, sprites, paste it there. Now we have all of this. We're not going to plan to modify any of these files. We're just worried about these 2, which are used for the normal purple screen. I'm just going to quickly off screen change these to be red. Alright, I've changed these in the image editor. They're now red. They're in mods, sprites, FXTL space. That's very simple, but if we want to replace them with a custom sprite, there's a few rules you need to know. First of all, you'll notice that this sprite is a specific 256 by 256, and pretty much every file in the game is going to be its own size. So let's just go to random sprite here. This one, for example, is 68 by 46. One thing you need to know when you're modifying sprites is the sprite file that you use to replace has to be the exact same size as the sprite file that it's replacing. If I want to replace the FXKO space texture, the texture I use to replace it needs to be exactly 256 by 256 or it won't work. It'll either get cut off, or there'll be like an area of blackness, or the game will literally just refuse to accept the file and it won't get modified. You also need to make sure it's in the right format. All of the sprites, along with all the textures, are in a .png format. For sounds, it's a little trickier. Sound effects, things like the sound effect of you hitting someone, those are going to be .wav files. But if we go to the sounds folder here, you're going to see that there are also some OGG files, and the OGG files are used for music specifically. Everything else is .wav. Another thing to note about sounds is that unlike sprites, the sound effect that you replace does not have to be the same length as the sound effect from the vanilla game. It can be as long or as short as you want. It'll work just fine either way. However, there is something to note with sound effects, which is that the game has hard-coded volumes for each of them. For example, the shovel hit strong sound effect is a lot louder than something minor, like the sound of Crag rolling during his side special right here. No matter how loud I make this sound file, it will always be quieter than a sound file that is hard-coded to be louder in the game. So even if 2 sound files are the same volume, depending on which file you're replacing with them, the volume will be different in the actual game. Now, another thing you can modify is the game's music, and there's actually 2 ways of doing this. If you go to your main Rivals folder, you'll see here, they have all these files already for all of the music in the game. And you can change these. If you want to, you can just change these. They are empty by default, but if you change these yourself, it'll just change the music in game. You don't have to use the modding tool at all. However, there's going to be a couple problems with this. First of all, you'll notice that there's like 4 different tracks for each of them, so it can be a bit annoying if you want to do that. And then the other thing is that if you go into sound test and play a song that way, it will not affect that. So there is a way to do it with the modding tool instead that technically makes it better. Unlike here, where you'll see there's like 4 different files for each song, if you go into the file structure of the game and find the music that way, which you can just do by finding the files with music at the front of them, you'll see that there's only 2 tracks for music. So for example, this one is Music Workshop Water, which is for High Dive Hideaway. You're going to see there's an open track and a loop track. The open track runs when the song starts playing, and then the loop track runs when it loops. So if there's a part of the song in the intro that only is supposed to play once, it won't play again when it loops. If you want to mod the song, you need to affect both of these files. In many cases, you don't really want to have a different loop and opening, and a lot of songs just aren't really compatible with that if you're modding them into the game. And if you don't want to deal with that, what you can do is you can just make it so that the open file is basically like 0.1 seconds of nothing, and then you make the loop file the actual music. The other thing to note with the loop file is that it will run the end of the audio, like the last 0.1 seconds or so, at the beginning of it. So I suggest putting 0.1 seconds of silence at the end of the loop track as well. Other than that, they're installed in a very simple way. You know it already. You go to mods, you go to sounds, and then you put the files in here with the correct names. Alright, I'm going to go over one more thing. If you want to change text in your game, it's very easy. All you need to do is you need to copy the language file for whatever language you use. I'm just going to do English because I speak English. I'm going to put it in the mods folder. It doesn't need to be here, but it's just an easy place to store it so that I can copy and paste it back over here without losing the file. If I go to Steam and my mods break and I need to go and I need to verify my files, it's going to delete the changes to the text as well as the changes to the sounds and sprites. So we're going to need to have the modified language file on hand so that we can paste it back in there anytime we reset the game's files. So if we want to change something in the language file, all we need to do is find the string that we want. Let's say we want to change Malo's silver emote. So I'm going to just search for the text that it normally does, which is extinguish. Find it here. Let's say we want to change it to this. All I have to do is now save the file and then copy this and then paste it back over and replace the one in the routes folder. If I go and launch the game now, you'll immediately see that the text you changed will be replaced with the modified text. So here we are. I'm just going to go online into a friendly match and use the chat. We can see if we go over to Malo's taunt. There it is. It goes off the screen, but it works. All right. So that pretty much wraps it up. That covers just about everything I can think of to do with the Rivals of Aether modding tool and how to use it and how to mod your game assets. If you have any questions, you can message me on Discord. I'm everywhere in the Rivals community. You can also join the stage modding Discord. There's a link to it in the README of the V3 modding tool, and you can ask me there or you can ask someone else there. You can also comment them or whatever. Yeah, I hope this was helpful. Bye.